Over 75 million albums and singles sold worldwide since 1987. Taylor Dayne bringing us the hits for over 35 years with timeless tracks like Tell It to My Heart, Love Will Lead You Back, Prove Your Love. Thank you so much for your time today. She's going to be at the Displays Theater with Sheena Easton this upcoming Saturday. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. We're getting a lot of, it's exciting to be back there. How's the weather? That's all look at me. It's 78 today. How are we doing over there? It looked like 28 high and 18 low.
Here's the weird part. It's 40 today and it feels like it's springtime. Like that's how our mentality is in Chicago. When it's not freezing, it's like, oh, let's put on some shorts. That's what it feels like.
Okay, so you guys, you're not spoiled like we are, but I understand. It's hard, yeah.
Now, the 80's babies are out for this tour. Talk a little bit about Sheena Easton and how the two of you connected for this co-headlining tour.
Sheena and I have met, God knows, over the years. I'm trying to think of who I haven't met at this point, we did some tour dates in South America together, and our agents are close, and so it just seemed like I always try to introduce and always try to I think as far as touring, make it more exciting and always, I have such a repertoire of music from contemporary to pop and, show to Sheena. And so it's a nice pairing. It's real fun.
Let's talk a little bit. It's Valentine's weekend that's going to be coming up, and any one of your songs could be a Valentine's Day anthem. Tell It to My Heart, Prove Your Love,
yeah.
Don't Rush Me, Love Will Lead You Back, Heart of Stone. Everybody has something.
Prove Your Love. Can't get enough of your love. Yeah, you see a theme here? I do too. Yeah.
Let's go back. Tell It to My Heart. When you recorded it 5 a.m. after you were at another gig, tell me a little bit about that inspiration of like finishing that job and you're like, I got this song I want to record, and having that energy afterwards at 5 a.m. to record it.
Oh, well, look, 20 years old. Number one. Number two, it was my money I was spending in the studio. Number three, this wasn't like one shot, one done. We had a studio we were working at in Merrick, and Rick Wake and I was working in a Russian nightclub, which I was doing every weekend. And that was basically feeding Rick and keeping an apartment roof over my head. And, I was very used to those hours by then. I started at 10. I didn't get off the stage till 3, 4 every morning. And then we had that window, we had the luxury of getting in the studio at, 4, 5 a.m. and taking it as long as we needed to. That's really, why those hours are kind of like that. Musicians prefer them, and then also because we're working. And that's a classic, Tell It to My Heart is a classic radio hit. And it's also a classic songs. It started in the clubs. It had a real grassroots feel to it. You have to realize this is 87. It broke in Europe first. It didn't break here. It broke in Europe. And it was, that's why I was headlining and then opening up for Michael Jackson within the year. It was probably one of the biggest songs, if not, of 87, 88. Closer to 88, obviously. So, yeah.
Speaking of Michael Jackson, what was that tour like for you? Because I've heard that he had a big ritual with the outfits. Like, did that hype you up as well too? Well, what was that whole?
Oh yeah, you get tingles. When I used to think of his whole, he had a ritual prior to jumping on stage, and that was, this was at the time when he was wearing a lot more military jackets and that whole concept. He was doing cadence, and he was doing before he got on stage, and this was backstage in the green rooms or from his dressing room area. He would be with maybe 4 or 5 soldiers of some nature, or military, and they chant and do, while he's amping up to get on stage with him, like, hand up, 1, 2, 3, and hey, and then he'd run on stage and want to be starting something. You get goosebumps backstage. It was a whole experience. That's how he was as an entertainer.
Love Will Lead You Back, and Clive Davis picking that song for you, and working with Diane Warren, obviously an icon in the music business.
Diane, as always, was calling and speaking to Rick and I anyway, prior to this, really trying to get on this next record because we had such success with the first one. And because, she's just a tenacious beast in her own right, as far as marketing and pushing and wanting the artist to really, be in contact with them and get the music. So we were very aware of Diane at this point. And when Clive played the song, he goes, I wasn't sure if it was for Whitney or not, but I feel it's strong. It's so strong for you. You hear the demo, that, you really listen to it. And it was just so beautiful, heartbreaking, and so sentimental, but also at the same time so universal. Love will lead you back. I mean, it's like Unbreak My Heart. I mean, this is the way Diane kind of twisted up, but the melody itself was just so, it's almost like you're climbing the it's you're climbing a scale, and it just feels so right. And that's the nature of a hit song. Like I mean, she studied it, she mastered the art of it, but this is it's my favorites. It's my favorite encore and show and song that I end my entire shows with. Because you'd think a ballad would be the worst scenario, but I kind of learned this from Cyndi Lauper, because she kind of does it with True Colors. And I was watching her, and we were on tour together, and I was like, Love Will Lead You Back could have that kind of impact. Same. Really bring everything, makes sense. You tell a story when you're on a stage and a tour and a show, and it just made sense to me. And it really has continued to just shine in my heart that way.
Because obviously, there's fans.
And for the audiences, I think.
Oh, exactly. Because I think you have your fans that love the dance music. You have your fans that love the ballads. You have the 80s fans. You have your LGBTQ plus fans. I mean, you have, basically what I'm getting at is that no matter who your friends are or who your family are, someone wants to go to a Taylor Dayne concert because everybody connects with your music in a different way.
Yeah, it's of course. I mean, look, I started in 1987, 88. And all these records through the 90s. And I mean, these are pop classics, and it's at least, and I've had 17 of them. So it's amazing. We can look at the first 6 and go, wow, every one of them, it's incredible. 7, 8, that's having quite a repertoire. That's having hit songs. That's having an incredible, catalog of music.
And the final thing here, as far as like I get older, I have a deeper appreciation for the things that I had growing up, and you have a deeper appreciation for the songs and the music that you had as a kid that you still get to see and get, the performers that still come to your town to sing those songs. What's it like for you, especially on this tour, getting to see all the fans' faces that you were with me in 1987. Maybe you just heard my music. Maybe some of the younger fans may have just gotten into your music.
Oh, it's generational now, because like I see family, like I see the children, it depends on the venue and the audience, but yeah, it's generational. Now you have families. I have daughters, kids, sons. My mom played you and or on the radio, and I heard you in the club, or or if they would happen to be born then and like in the clubs like you and I or whatever, and in their teenage years, this is the soundtrack of people's lives. You never can deny that. And they, that music travels. That's whatever my parents played, I listened to, and vice versa. And the radio is so impactful. And during, the 80s and 90s, that's what we had. And we didn't have as many, and we didn't have satellite, and we didn't have, computers and internet and cell phones, not until mid to late 90s,
Well, we can't wait for you to come back here. Limited amount of tickets available, so please go ahead and get those ASAP for Taylor Dayne and for Sheena Easton at the Des Plaines Theater this upcoming Saturday. DesPlainesTheater.com for tickets. Thank you so much, and enjoy your time in our city.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.